Buddy, what are you doing?
Stop disrupting me, Jimmy!
Okay. Maybe you should drink a tea to calm down.
I told you that I don't drink tea, and you shouldn't either. It's bad! I told you not to listen to this stupid music. We're only listening to Mozart in this house, god damn it! Let's begin.
Servus Freunde, my name's Jimmy Cage.
And I'm Deniz, the Buddymeister.
We have reviewed almost 400 indie movies on the channel, and today we talk about one that was directly picked for us by one of our awesome Malayalam tier supporters. Sujit PS has actually recommended us a handful of Malayalam classics, but unfortunately it was impossible to find them anywhere with English subtitles. So in the end we had to settle with a lesser known film, but I can already say that it was quite interesting.
Aham, which can be translated to Self, is a 1992 Malayalam language drama that was written by Venu Nagavalli and directed by Rajeevnath. It stars Mohanlal, Urvasi, Ramya Krishna, Nidamudi Venu, Jagati Srikumar, and also Suresh Gopi in a small role.
In typical Malayalam movie tradition, it takes a while before we get to the actual meat of the story. And when we do, the film is showing a very different side. But first, what is the story of Aham?
You know, the interesting thing here is that the summaries on Wikipedia and IMDb and Letterboxd are just wrong or terribly written. They were obviously written by people who either haven't watched the movie or didn't understand it at all. Now, let me try to tell you what Aham is about. This can take a while though. So it starts with Mariana, who visits her aunt in a mental asylum / retreat / settlement to carry out her research on perception and aesthetics of mentally ill people. One of the patients is Siddharthan, who leads a very spiritual and secluded life. Mariana gets intrigued by that and tries to get closer to him. By doing that, she kind of messes with the overall balance in the settlement and brings some stuff to the surface. Rather dark stuff that regards Siddhartha's past. Yeah, and things get murkier and crazier as we learn more and more things about Siddharthan.
Aham is a peculiar mix of rather light-hearted, even slightly comedic drama fare, mostly through the several inhabitants of that mental asylum, and then fairly dark psychological stuff. But all of that is also very much a movie version of these matters, which is something that I enjoyed quite a bit. It's grounded, but also fairly accentuated, with each patient having this one very striking and memorable quirk that gets repeated again and again, or the very direct, drastic nature of Siddharthan's behavior in the flashbacks. It's this Freudian, simplified psychology that's probably not that accurate or realistic, but it's fun and nice drama for a movie.
Yeah, this easy and probably not scientifically based psychology is expressed through the fact that they all took their final shock or trauma into their mental illness. One character, it's the one played by Jagati Srikumar, lost all his money in the production of a movie, so now he's on the phone all the time trying to make this movie happen. Another one, the one that's played by Nidamudi Venu, lost his 2 sons, and now he's constantly calling for them.
Another one keeps repairing a radio, another is tailoring all the time. It has certain camp elements to it, but it's entertaining and charming. Also, the way Mother Noble is talking. And I'm not sure if it was intended, but I also found it quite amusing in a dark, twisted kind of way, how rude or extreme Siddharthan is behaving. Pretty much everything that his wife Ranjini does or likes gets rejected by him. For example, when they are lying in bed at night and she wants to listen to a song she likes. The brutality with which Siddharthan denies her that pleasure, I can't help but find it somewhat funny.
I know what you mean. I think a lot of that comes from Mohanlal's performance. I thought he's great in that role. His appearance, his looks fit this character perfectly. Siddharthan is innocent, naive, dangerous, erratic, and the back and forth between him and Ranjini can be funny, but it always has this strange undercurrent that you can't get a read on. And I kind of liked how the movie's structured, starting in this Malayalam chill mode, but slowly drifting off into this dark psychological territory.
It's difficult to fully talk about this movie without going into some spoilers. But because it's already 30 years old, I suggest we just do that. It fits to what you just said about the structure of the movie. Once we get to the big flashback, the movie became a lot more interesting to me. It was nice before, and I enjoyed that whole mental asylum setting, especially because it's already slightly different through the Kerala setting alone, and to see these familiar actors like Nidamudi Venu or Jagati Srikumar in these roles. But it also didn't grab me that much, and I was waiting for something a bit more dramatic, which we get in that flashback. And I just like the extreme nature of it. That young boy who hates his parents, the neurotic, obsessive man he turns into, and how his relationship to Ranjini turns out.
Like I said, I liked this whole build-up, also because I kind of knew or guessed that this story is about Siddharthan's past and how he got to where he is. Oh, and did I already mention that I think that every movie should start like Aham?
Because of the song?
Of course, because of the song. The movie begins and Siddharthan sings, walking through Kerala's beautiful landscapes. You can't get any better than that. But coming back to the structure, I thought how we find our way through the story, how Mariana listens to the tapes, how we go back and forth between the present and the past, and how this dark and irritating feeling crawls in is well made.
This is an Indian movie and therefore the structure and storytelling follow certain conventions. But with this movie, I think it would have been better to make that flashback the actual movie and strip away all this mental asylum framework. Make it a tight little dark psychological thriller drama. Now, I don't mind the rest of the movie, but I wish the connective tissue was stronger. Not only doesn't it really add much to the story or the character, but I'm also not sure what to think about Siddharthan's character or what the movie wants to say about him.
Yeah, I agree. The movie's obscure about that. I mean, they sure try to make Siddharthan a somehow sympathetic character.
Since we're already in the spoiler segment, I can just say this. He has killed a young woman, Vimala, played by Vaishnavi, who appears in the movie a little bit too out of nowhere, to be honest. And he's also more or less responsible for Ranjini's accident and later death. Was he ever really charged for the murder of Vimala at least? This mental asylum seems to be a pretty chill place where he can just roam around freely. I'm not so sure what exactly to make of his spiritual or religious journey. And why is he regarded so highly by Mother Noble and Mariana? I mean, sure, he's a fascinating character, but he's also done some horrible things. At first, I thought the movie wants to lure us into liking him and then surprise or shock us. But that would have worked better if the ending was more in that psycho-horror direction. But it's played more like a sad drama with him being the one we should sympathize with? Or am I missing something?
Well, I guess the movie tries to tell us something about childhood trauma and probably the missing treatment of it. I mean, it's kind of the only thing that works in Siddharthan's favor, as stupid as it may sound. He had a terrible childhood and lived through and has seen things that no child should. That, of course, does not apologize for what he later does, but it gives everything a certain perspective. But they could have certainly done a better job in unraveling all this in the story and connecting these different points in his life so that we're not sitting there at the end not knowing what to think of him.
It's an interesting point, and I think there are a lot of interesting elements in this movie, but I felt as if it doesn't really know what to make of it all.
I agree, again, but I thought that it's just so well made and entertaining, especially when Siddharthan has this crazier fits, like when he walks through the streets and hears Ranjini's voice behind him, or when he lies down beside her in the hospital and looks to the fan, which actually is a callback to his childhood, where he did exactly that to kind of liberate his thoughts. His downward spiral fascinated me, and the movie just kept me to the point.
Maybe I must relent a bit. While I don't think everything is coming together that well, I still thought it to be an engaging and fascinating film, and it also has a lot of elements that are wonderful. From Mohanlal's acting to the beautiful camera work by Santosh Sivan and Venu, the nice music and songs by Ravindran, and these exciting, genre-like moments that you just mentioned.
And the ending is really dark and haunting, and I don't know, it kind of worked for me as this middle-of-the-road ending where I neither pitied Siddharthan too much, but his fate also didn't leave me completely cold. I just thought that this man really needed a good therapy.
Alright, so what would we say in German about Aham?
Aham hat mich überrascht. Die eigensinnige, aber gelungene Mischung aus Malayalam Chill und Psychothriller, gepaart mit Mohanlals tollem Schauspiel und der spannenden Inszenierung, die uns immer tiefer in die Düsternis entführt, ist unterhaltsam und faszinierend.
I give Aham 6 out of 10. It's more like 6.4, but I don't do that.
For me, it's 7 out of 10. It's more like 7.4, but I don't do that either. Did you know that the Kerala Journal of Psychiatry of the Indian Psychiatric Society reviewed over 130 Malayalam movies to analyze depictions of psychiatric disorders and examine the portrayal of suicide, grief, stigma, and stereotypes of illnesses and treatments, and that only a handful of those movies are more or less scientifically sound?
Didn't know that. Is Aham one of them?
What do you think? No.
Didn't think so. So, what are your thoughts about Aham? Leave a comment. You can hit me up on Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd, and also on Patreon, simply at the Jimmy Cage.
And you can hit me up on Twitter at the Buddymeister.
And as always, if you enjoyed this episode, please give us a thumbs up, share, subscribe, whatever you like.
And make sure you hit that bell for all we have to tell.